Have you ever felt a subtle discomfort around someone, but ignored it, only to regret it later? Have you ever told yourself, maybe it's not a big deal, while your body screamed otherwise? What if the red flags we overlook in relationships are not just emotional warnings, but spiritual signals? What if your soul is whispering truths your mind refuses to hear? Watch this video until the end, because understanding these 5 red flags could mean the difference between staying stuck in cycles of pain or stepping into peace. In the comments, tell us honestly, what was a red flag you ignored, and what did it teach you? Your insight could help someone else. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering arises not just from what we experience, but from how we relate to it. Craving, clinging, and ignorance are the roots of our pain, and nowhere do they show up more clearly than in the way we connect with others. In relationships, we often ignore what is uncomfortable in order to preserve what is familiar. But silence doesn't dissolve the truth. It only delays it. The first red flag is the feeling of walking on eggshells, not just occasionally, but consistently. When someone's presence makes you anxious to speak, to be yourself, to show emotion, that's not harmony. That's fear dressed up as peace. And the Buddha reminds us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding. You cannot cultivate inner stillness in a space where you're punished for being authentic. That's not love, that's control. And the longer you stay in that space, the more you forget the sound of your own voice. The second red flag is emotional inconsistency, when someone's affection is a reward system, not a natural expression. One moment they love you, the next they disappear. One day you're everything, the next you're invisible. This push and pull is not excitement, it's emotional instability, and it trains your nervous system to normalize chaos. Buddha taught impermanence, yes, but not unpredictability that wounds. Healthy relationships are rooted in presence, not performance. You shouldn't have to earn love like a prize. If love is real, it doesn't need to be chased. It simply is. The third red flag is when your boundaries are constantly negotiated, ignored, or belittled. Buddha taught compassion. But compassion is not self-abandonment. Setting boundaries is not unkindness, it is clarity. It is the realization that your inner peace is sacred. Anyone who repeatedly crosses lines you have clearly drawn is not misunderstanding, they are disregarding. And what you allow is what will continue. If someone cannot accept your no without punishment, guilt, or manipulation, then their yes was never safe to begin with. The fourth red flag is when your energy feels drained after interactions not once, not twice, but over and over again. Relationships are not always easy, but they should not feel like spiritual depletion. Thich Nhat Hanh often reminded us that the people we surround ourselves with either water our joy or deplete it. If every conversation leaves you feeling small, ashamed, or confused, this is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of imbalance. You are not responsible for fixing someone else's inner war. You can love someone deeply and still know that your well-being is not theirs to erode. The fifth red flag, perhaps the most subtle, is when your intuition goes quiet, not because it's at peace, but because it's been silenced. You begin to doubt yourself. You question your own perception. You need their validation to know what's real. This is spiritual gaslighting, and it's one of the most dangerous forms of suffering. Because when you stop trusting yourself, you become easy to control. But the Buddha taught us to trust direct experience, to use mindfulness as a mirror. If something feels wrong repeatedly, it often is. And no love that asks you to abandon your own clarity is love worth keeping. These red flags are not just emotional experiences, they are spiritual crossroads. Each one is an invitation. Will you stay asleep in the pattern, or will you awaken to the truth? In Buddhist practice, awareness is the first step toward liberation. To become aware of suffering is not weakness, it is the beginning of wisdom. And when you notice these signs in a relationship, whether romantic, familial, or even within friendship, you have a choice. You can ignore them, rationalize them, dress them up in spiritual language, or you can sit with the discomfort and ask yourself the deeper question, what am I really afraid of losing? Often, we ignore red flags because we are afraid of being alone. But the Buddha reminded us that it is better to travel alone than to be accompanied by the wrong person. Solitude, when chosen, is not loneliness. It is strength. It is the space where your soul can breathe again. We also ignore red flags because we believe we can change people, that with enough love, enough patience, enough sacrifice, they will see, they will change. But this hope often becomes a cage. You are not responsible for someone else's healing. You can offer love, you can offer presence, but you cannot awaken for them. Buddhist wisdom encourages us to see things as they are, not as we wish they would be. And this includes seeing people clearly, their actions, their patterns, their energy, not just their words. Anyone can speak beautifully, but peace is not in words, it's in presence. And if someone's presence consistently brings you anxiety, confusion, or self-doubt, that is your lesson. The red flags in relationships aren't signs of your failure, they are signs of your awareness. And awareness is the first doorway to freedom. So what do you do when you notice them? First, breathe. Sit with the truth without rushing to fix it. The Buddha often taught that just being with suffering, not pushing it away, already begins to transform it. Second, name it. Use clarity. This doesn't feel safe. This behavior isn't respectful. My energy is being drained. Naming what's happening removes the fog. It pulls you out of self-blame and into self-trust. Third, seek inner stillness before making outer decisions. Don't react in panic. Respond from wisdom. Meditate. Journal. Speak to someone you trust, not to gossip, but to gain reflection. When your mind is calm, your path becomes clear. Finally, act from compassion, not just for them, but for you. Sometimes that means having a hard conversation. Sometimes it means stepping back. And sometimes it means walking away. Not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. You deserve relationships that nourish your spirit, not drain it. You deserve to feel safe, seen, and supported, not manipulated, silenced, or afraid. Sometimes the most spiritual act you can take is to walk away from what keeps you in suffering, not with hatred, not with resentment, but with clarity, with compassion, with the kind of silence that isn't empty but full of strength. This is the kind of silence the Buddha spoke of, the one that holds peace like a sacred offering. Because staying in harmful energy is not loyalty, it is self-betrayal. And self-betrayal is the deepest kind of wound. Ask yourself, why are you still justifying the behavior that hurts you? Why are you making excuses for the pain you feel in your body every time you're around this person? The tightness in your chest, the shallow breath, the constant worry, that's your nervous system trying to warn you. And when we silence those signals, we lose our own voice in the process. But your voice matters, your energy matters, your boundaries matter. If someone truly loves you, they will not ask you to collapse into silence so they can feel tall. They will not punish you for your peace. Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron once said, "Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know." And red flags, those uncomfortable truths we feel, but try to forget, are not meant to destroy us. They are meant to awaken us. They are messengers. And what they're trying to say is this: you are worthy of relationships rooted in clarity, not confusion. You are worthy of calm, not chaos. But recognizing these red flags is only the beginning. What we do with that recognition, that is where our freedom lies. So let's look deeper, not just at the signs, but at the stories we carry that make us ignore them. Sometimes we grew up in homes where love was inconsistent, so inconsistency feels like love. Sometimes we were taught to put others first at all costs, so we abandon ourselves in the name of being good. Sometimes we think being spiritual means tolerating everything, when in truth, true spirituality includes discernment. You can be compassionate and still say, "This is not healthy for me." You can be kind and still say, "I choose peace over pleasing." You can be loving and still walk away. This is the balance the Buddha teaches, not detachment from others, but detachment from the illusion that our worth depends on them. When you release that illusion, you stop needing people to change in order for you to feel safe. You start choosing spaces where you don't have to shrink. You start surrounding yourself with people who don't see your boundaries as a threat, but as a sign of your self-respect. And here's what happens next. You grow. Not because the world around you has become easier, but because your inner world is no longer at war. The energy you once spent walking on eggshells, second-guessing, over-explaining, trying to manage someone else's mood, you reclaim it. And in that stillness, you hear your own wisdom again. You feel your own breath again. You start to remember who you were before the red flags became your normal. You begin to trust yourself, not just in relationships, but in every area of your life. Your intuition sharpens, your presence deepens. You stop living in reaction and start living with intention. And when new people enter your life, you see them clearly. Not through the lens of fear or fantasy, but through grounded awareness. You don't project your hopes onto them. You don't ignore the subtle signs. You don't override your body's wisdom. You move slowly. You ask questions. You pay attention to how your energy responds. You choose with care. Because you've learned that peace is not just a spiritual idea, it's a lived reality. It's in how your body feels after a conversation. It's in the tone someone uses when they disagree with you. It's in whether your truth is welcomed or weaponized. Peace is not just found in temples or meditations, it is found in the people you allow into your life. And once you taste that peace, truly, you'll never settle for less again. But even if you have, even if you've stayed too long, given too much, ignored every sign, you're not broken, you're not foolish, you're human. And Buddhist practice invites us to hold that humanness with compassion. Every time you ignored a red flag, you were just trying to protect yourself. You were hoping, you were loving, you were trying to make it work, and that's okay. You don't need to judge yourself, you only need to awaken, to see clearly, to act courageously. Because the truth is, red flags are not punishments, they are invitations. They ask us to choose ourselves. They ask us to grow into someone who no longer accepts confusion as connection. They ask us to become the kind of person who is so anchored in their own peace that anything less becomes impossible to stay in. And here's a powerful truth. When you start honoring these red flags, not with panic, but with presence, you don't just protect your peace. You become peace. You radiate clarity. You model love that is grounded, not desperate, whole, not half. You show others that it's possible to love without losing yourself. So take this with you. Love is not supposed to feel like tension. Trust is not supposed to feel like a test. If you are constantly doubting, explaining, hurting, and shrinking, you are not in a relationship, you are in a cycle. And the only way to break the cycle is to step outside of it. You were not born to be tangled in someone else's confusion. You were born to walk in clarity. You were not born to prove your worth. You were born to embody it. And you were not born to fix people who don't want to be fixed. You were born to walk beside those who are already doing the work too. So breathe. Come home to yourself. And listen. The signs are always there. Your body knows. Your soul knows. And now you know. In the comments, tell us which of these 5 red flags resonated with you the most. Let this be your declaration, not of blame, but of awakening. You deserve to be seen, to be safe, to be loved in ways that do not require you to suffer. Your peace is not negotiable. And your heart is finally ready to remember that.